Hey everybody, this is Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review 28 years later, The Bone Temple. And I did not get to reviewing this movie for the past couple of days just because, I don't know, I've been trying to make like a good schedule, and then I find myself just not liking the schedules at all. And then one little thing will like get pushed, and that will make literally everything else in the schedule get pushed. And then it almost feels like a Jenga tower. It feels like a Jenga tower falling, all over the place. And so that's what it's been feeling like this month. But, thankfully, I'm kind of just, I'm going through it. I'm learning how to, make a better schedule, I guess, or how to, I don't even know if I want to have a schedule because schedules are really stupid. But I just wanted to say that because I did want to see this movie on Friday and, review it on Saturday, but I did not get to. And you know what? It doesn't even matter because I just saw it and... Okay, so, for starters, I did not like the last one. The last one started off very, very interestingly. You had this really good opening scene. The opening scene was creepy. It felt like the original. And then you had this really good first act where it was like this father-son thing, and then the movie just fell apart after that, and it just became complete trash. And at the end of that movie, it was like just one of the stupidest endings I've ever seen in a movie, but it did kind of tease what I thought could potentially be a very interesting sequel, a very good sequel, and a very scary sequel. Because one of my biggest issues I have with the last movie is that it wasn't very scary. You kind of felt that you knew that these characters were going to be okay. There wasn't very much danger at all in the movie. And there was a lot of plot conveniences. And it didn't feel like the original. The original 28 Days Later, the reason why that movie was good was because it was suspenseful and creepy, and you felt danger. You felt danger in that movie. I remember being scared shitless watching that movie as a kid, and, just how creepy it was, how inexplicable it was. And the last one was just terrible. It was horrible. It was a disaster of epic proportions. There was no story structure. There were no character arcs. It was just more like character trash. And so this movie, the sequel, I guess, in this trilogy, this new trilogy, it was written by the same guy. So it was not going to be drastically different. And, I was really kind of looking forward to this movie. I thought there is some potential here. This could be a standout of 2026. And I think you guys know where I'm going. Unfortunately, this is not. Or it might be. I don't know. I mean, the rest of the year, the movies might be so bad that this will stay in the top 10 or whatever. But, this movie was really, really bad. It was bad for a lot of reasons, and it's really unfortunate because there were a lot of good parts in it. There were good scenes. There were really good performances. I thought that the directing was a lot better in this movie. I felt like the direction felt a lot more consistent, and the script was better than the last one, but it still was a terrible script. But I will say, it gets better in like the last 20 minutes, but it also gets worse at the same time. Again, this movie is very chaotic in a bad way, and it's so disappointing, though. It is so disappointing. It is like a January movie personified. I think what's most disappointing is that it doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like a long TV show episode. It doesn't feel, again, like there's a story structure. It doesn't feel like there are any character arcs at all in this movie. I mean, I don't like sounding pretentious, and I don't want to sound too mean, because there are good things in this movie, and I'm just glad that it's over, though. But there are good things in this movie, but I could literally take every single character in this entire movie. I could draw them all on like a whiteboard. I have a whiteboard next to me, and I could tell you none of the characters in this movie have a character arc. And that's really weird, because usually in a good story, in a good complete story, there's at least one or two character arcs. There are none in this movie, because this movie does not feel like a complete story. It feels like an overly long side mission. It feels like an overly long, like, I don't know what you call it. Is it called addendum? Like an addendum to the last movie. And then I don't know what the third one's going to be about, but I literally don't even care anymore. I don't even care at this point. So yeah, that's my opinion of this movie. I know I'm not being very nice. I'm not being very nice. And, you know, it could be, I mean, there's a lot of movies that I see and I have expectations. And I try not to let that affect the experience. Like with the last one, when they said that there was going to be like a bone temple, I thought it was going to be like walls and walls of like bones. Like, you know, I had a completely different picture, but then I saw the movie and I didn't let any of that affect how badly I thought that the movie was. Like, I didn't let that affect my opinion of the movie. But in this case, it was kind of hard not to, because the entire movie is basically just about one or two things, and if you have expectations for that, just like at least some expectation, you will be disappointed, probably. This movie was bad. It was very, very disjointed. It felt almost like the person who wrote this movie, he just kind of threw this together so that he could get to the third one. But it's really weird, because again, in the third one, I mean, who even cares about the third one? This is the problem. This is one of the problems when you do a series and you have like this plan. You know, every movie needs to have a complete story. Every movie needs to feel like it could stand on its own. And there's no way that this movie could stand on its own. This movie is a disaster of proportions that we've already seen before. So it's not that big of a deal. But it's nonetheless, it's still a disaster. There's a lot of issues that I have with it, and I think that the main thing that I'd like to talk about for a second is that, you know, there were a lot of people who saw Primate and they said it was a stupid movie just because it was about a killer chimp. And those same people thought that this movie was really, really good and it was really intelligent. But I'm telling you guys, with a straight face, with all honesty, Primate was a lot smarter than this. There were a lot more smarter decisions made in that movie. That movie was a lot scarier. The violence was a lot better. There were a lot more cool kills, special effects. The villain was a lot better, even though the villain in that movie was an animal. And in this movie, you have this retarded wannabe Jimmy Savile, who's like a giant baby. He's like a giant baby who just doesn't really have much of a character at all in the whole movie, even though the whole movie is about him. And it's really, really weird. Like, sometimes I do think that, like, a lot of other people, they see movies the way that they want to see them. Like, if you saw Primate and you said it was really stupid, it was a stupid movie, it was just dumb, funny bullshit, but then you see a movie like this and you say that this is like high art, it just kind of seems like that's what you always wanted to say. And I've seen that a lot. I saw that last year, with certain things that I won't talk about specifically. But, there were a lot of people who just, they watched things and then they saw what they wanted to see that they probably would have said without even watching those movies. And, I never do that. And that's what makes this channel so distinct from other YouTube channels, is that I'll tell you guys what I thought. Like, if I liked this movie, I liked it. If I didn't, I didn't. I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm not going to lie. And I've had experiences before, too, where, I really liked Superman the first time I saw it, but I did kind of think it was very mediocre. But, 2025 movies were terrible. So, mediocre can be masterful. But over time, I've just completely grown to despise Superman with like a heavenly passion. And this movie, though, I don't even know what to say. I'm so disappointed. So let's I don't even know what to say because there's a lot of spoilers. I mean, you could really spoil the whole movie. Probably like 2 minutes, but yeah. Ugh. This is what it feels like, guys. This is what it feels like when you see a January movie. It feels like I don't even want to say anything else. I was going to say something, but I didn't want to. But I'll say this. There are elements of this movie that are good. I thought that the opening scene, once again, was okay. The opening scene kind of began the movie in a really, really brutal and kind of, I guess, suspenseful way. But the opening scene basically exposed the whole movie's problems right off the bat. Because as soon as the movie opens, it doesn't really open. It just jumps right in. It just jumps to a place. It almost feels like there's like 30 minutes of movie that happened before the opening scene, and the filmmakers just cut all that out, and then they cut straight to this. And so it opens up feeling very disjointed and feeling like, you're just, you're jumping right in. You don't even get a chance to kind of settle into the story. And I thought, maybe that's the feeling that they want this movie to have. Maybe the feeling that they want people to have watching this is like chaos, like complete chaos, like the Joker, the Dark Knight. And, I was really vibing with that idea. I was really, excited about Spike, which, he was a stupid-ass character in the last movie, especially at the end, where he thought he could go take care of himself, and he had the fish on the fire. That was so dumb. But, like, I was really excited about seeing, like, this cult, this Jimmy Savile cult, and the implications of that, and seeing this kid, in that cult, and seeing the doctor, Dr. Ian again, and then him and Samson, which, Jason Momoa, as I call him, but, Samson. And that's not a spoiler because it's all in the trailer. But, like, I was excited for all those stories to happen. Or I guess the two stories. Both of them are not very good. They are pretty predictable. I mean, especially the last 20 minutes, you can predict every single thing that's going to happen. There's never a moment where you really feel danger, or where you feel like, oh, wow, that's actually surprising. There are some cool moments. There are some really, really cool moments, though. Some of the only good things, and again, I really thought that the direction was better in this movie, and there was a really good scene towards the end, or two, and some really good dialogue, some good character moments, but it all became so predictable, and then the ending, it kind of felt like, okay, we got to get this over with, and they kind of rushed it. And there were no suspense sequences in this movie. Like Hitchcock, he would have taken the script and he would have done something with it. He would have created some suspense sequences throughout this movie, but there were genuinely no suspense sequences at all. And even moments where you thought that there would be suspense, like there's this big moment at the end. There's this big sequence that happens. It's like the climax of the movie. And there is no suspense to be found. And that just, it sucks. It really sucks. There's also, I think, there's a lot of this violence in the movie that kind of feels like, it almost feels like the filmmakers, like they don't understand what makes violence shocking and what makes violence effective on screen. It feels kind of like how a lot of filmmakers, how they deal with nudity and sex scenes nowadays. It just seems like the people who make movies are like giant children, and they don't understand how to effectively communicate lovemaking or violence or any of that type of stuff on screen. They treat it like, okay, here's some guts and here's some boobs. And that would be fine, like, if this was like Friday the 13th part 69. But, like, this is supposed to be like one of those intelligent horror movies. It's supposed to be 28 Days Later part 3. I'm not counting 28 Weeks Later because who gives a fuck about that one? But but anyways, like, yeah. Ugh. I don't know what else to say before I get into spoilers, because I mean, there's really not much else to talk about. There were a lot of moments throughout the movie where I started laughing, and it was not supposed to be funny. There were some very, very funny sequences, some very funny moments, and they happened at the most, like, inappropriate times. And it was like, how could people not find this absolutely hilarious? Yeah. Like, so anyways, if you want to watch, and I'm going to start doing this. I know I've been kind of mealy-mouthed this review a little bit. I want to start recommending movies. It almost like sacrifices. Like, if this movie is a sacrifice, if you guys wanted to watch this movie and you're really disappointed and this review is like, it's like an arrow to the heart, well, I'm going to give you a movie that you could watch that is the better version of this. And as you see in the picture over this video, A Clockwork Orange is a masterpiece of a movie. And it is the movie that this movie should have been, or should have been like. It really doesn't feel like the people who made this movie have seen A Clockwork Orange, and I apologize, guys. I do not know why. It seems like when I do reviews sometimes that things will purposefully happen to throw me off. It's almost like a test. It's almost, like a final exam, but I would highly recommend A Clockwork Orange. I would also recommend House on the Edge of the Park. Now, that movie has a lot of nudity. It has some other stuff too, but it is an incredible movie. It's very scary. It's very suspenseful. It doesn't really involve a cult, but it involves like a gang. And it has one of the most satisfying endings that I've ever seen. Like, it is so satisfying the way that this movie turns out. And it's a lot better than this movie. It's a lot less predictable. You actually feel danger. There's danger for the characters. There's danger in the story that you don't feel in 28 years later, The Boneyard. And so in terms of food, I would rate this movie. Today was my day off, by the way. But I was bored, and I really wanted to watch this movie, so that pisses me off even more that I watched it, and I wasted my day off seeing this trash. But this afternoon, I couldn't really decide, what I wanted to have as a snack. And so I just had a bunch of random things. I had popcorn, obviously at the movies. I had a Jolly Rancher. I had a jelly apricot, which was really, really gross. It tasted like bandaging. Like those thick bandages. The thick brown bandages. That's what an apricot tastes like. And then I thought about having a chocolate. And, I know that that's a lot of stuff. My lunch was kind of small as well. So that led to things getting kind of out of hand. But, that's what this movie is like for me. It's like a big snack. It's like a snack that you try to, oh, this is really fun. I'm having a piece of candy. I'm having popcorn. I'm having an apricot jelly piece. But I'm not really getting my full. Is that a saying? Or no, fill. I'm not getting my fill. I'm not feeling like I had a whole meal. I'm not feeling like I had an experience that was apropos to what I was expecting or to what the movie could have been. And it's a shame. It's a big shame. I think that I should have reminded myself who wrote the movie, because he also wrote Civil War. And Civil War was also a piece of shit. And Civil War had a lot of the same problems that this movie had. In fact, it kind of wraps up in the same type of way where, that movie tries to make you feel like everything is chaotic and everything is, it's really scary and all over the place, but it's not. It's boring as hell. This movie wasn't boring, though, but Civil War, in the last 20 minutes, it just wraps up so predictably and so safely, and it's such a huge disappointment. And that's the same thing that happens in this movie. It gives up. It's like, okay, we did that, and then we're going to end now. And, oh yeah, there's going to be a third one. Yay! Said no one. Okay. Okay, that was mean. I'm sorry. Okay, 24:24. That is the timestamp. If you want to see the rest of the... Oh, wait. I have to do that first, so that won't be the timestamp. If you want to see the rest of this review, please head on over to the Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies Patreon page. If you join the second tier, you will be able to see all of my full, unedited, new release movie reviews. I will talk about spoilers. I'll talk specifics. And if you enjoy my content, then you're going to love it. And there's also a ton of other stuff on there, including my short film that I made last year, which was a huge waste of time. Shouldn't have done it, but I did it. So that's what she said. So, yes.